There's an old saying that says we teach what we needed the most. And so what I'm about to share with you, I created because I was an entrepreneur in the making. Being an entrepreneur is not something you do, it is something you are.
Actually, what is your definition of entrepreneur?
I want to give you 3 answers to that question, all of which are so important, and then they'll all kind of tie to each other. It makes me crazy when an entrepreneur says, I want to build a $100 million company, because I always respond with, do you really want to build a $100 million company? Because they just don't know what that really means when they say that.
Over the years, you work with so many companies. What do you think are some of the biggest, let's say, mistakes or bottlenecks that hold most entrepreneurs back?
And I want to tell you something that this is really this is like I call it a punch in the gut for a visionary, but it's a great punch in the gut because it's a wake-up call. And so I'm going to tell this story in 1 minute if I can.
Gino, I'm so excited to have you here. Talk to us about how the entire EOS company, where did that idea come from in the beginning?
Well, it is a pleasure to be here, first of all. And so you're specifically asking EOS and how EOS came about, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so the lightning fast version on my story in my 20s is I've been an entrepreneur since I was 21. I took over a family business at 24, ended up running that business Philly at 25, took on a big turnaround, successfully turned it around, got it growing nicely and cash flowing out of some deep, ugly debt. And then we decided to sell. And so my partners and I decided to sell. During that experience, I got involved with an organization called Young Entrepreneurs at the time, now known as Entrepreneurs Organization.
Yes.
And I just found that I have this knack for helping entrepreneurs. And I just kind of saw business a little different than the way they did. And I really felt I could help them. And then so going into my 30s, after selling the business, I stayed on for 1.5 years to transition in the new leadership team. I then pursued what was my passion, what I believe why I'm here, my purpose, and that is to help entrepreneurs get everything they want out of their businesses. And so I went and found one person that would let me practice on them, and then another one, and another one, and another one.
Kind of like a guinea pig, right?
They were. The first 10 or so were guinea pigs.
Yes.
But I was testing and trying a lot of stuff. I'm a fanatic learner. I applied a lot of the information from thought leaders I learned from in my 20s. And at the end of all that, 5 years into that, I put the finishing touches on what is EOS, and it's an operating system. That term was not being used back then for orchestrating people in an organization. And so I created an operating system that helps an entrepreneur run a better business working with that leadership team. And so 5 years in, once I had tested it with probably 50 companies, I really realized I had something. And so I put it into a book called Traction, and then joined forces with a partner of mine, Don Tinney, and we went to the world and we built a team of the most incredible EOS implementers. We now have a 320 strong, that we've taken 7,000 companies through the process, and we have another 70,000 that are using the tools and implementing the tools and self-implementing, as we call it. And so we're making a big impact on the world, and we're about 1% of the goal. So we've got a lot of work left to do.
I love that. I love that. And it's interesting because throughout the years, I've read a lot of books on, let's say, leadership and management, and everyone has different philosophies, right? And someone talks about you got to build a culture this way, you got to hire this way, you got to do it this way. But I haven't found a lot of books or content on here's the system, right? Yeah. Like no one is very clear. It's kind of vague. Like you kind of need to do this and you do a little bit of this, but as simple as how do you run a meeting? How do you create KPIs? How do you hold your team accountable? Like all these little things. So when I first, actually I read the Walk Your Field first.
Nice.
That like, right? It's like, oh shit, I'm a visionary, right? No wonder, like it drives me crazy because as a visionary, I'm trying to do the integrator work. Actually, you know what, just for my audience, explain a little bit about like the relationship between a visionary and an integrator, just for my audience. In case
I love it. And let me, I want to back up to something you were saying there, because you said something that's so important in terms of why EOS works and why, you're getting so much value out of it. And so many others do. What you said there is you said, we gave people the answer. I'm giving people the answer, so they're not having to figure it out. And so what I did is I basically took what all the big companies are doing and what all the thought leaders are teaching, and they all have different variations of it, but it's how to meet, how to plan, how to solve problems. And what I did is, as opposed to teaching this esoteric theory where then you decide after everything I teach you how you should meet, I just gave it to you. I just said, listen, here's all that I've learned. I'm going to put it in a nutshell for you as a company with 10 to 250 people doing $2 to $50 million.
Yes.
And I'm just going to give you the answer. Here's how to meet. Here's the agenda. Here's how to solve problems. Here's the track. Here's how to plan. Here's the tool. And so that's, you're really touching on the secret ingredient there is just to give you the answer.
So it's not just information, but it's all tools and implementation. It is an implementation system. That to me, that's what it is, right? Exactly. I can get a piece of paper. Here's a checklist. It's a tool. I can use it like tomorrow, this minute.
And so my gift and ability is to just take all that information and make it very practical and simplified and just give you a tool that does all that thinking for you so you can get back to working on your business and growing your business.
Yes.
So then jumping to your second question, explain Visionary Integrator. So this was when I was running the family business. There were three of us that were partners. And so it was my dad, a third partner, and myself. Okay. And my dad was the visionary and I was the integrator. And so what this was the intersection of a bunch of data points at that point. I was probably 26 or 27, 2 years into turning that company around. And through learning some things from E-Myth and Michael Gerber and my business mentor, and I'd have to call on 10 other data points. I came up with these two terms, and one was calling my dad the visionary and me the integrator. And then as I sold the business and started to create EOS, this all came back to me, and I saw this in every company that I worked with. And so in a nutshell, what it is I believe that every founding entrepreneur that builds an organization with people, they are a visionary, or most likely they're a visionary. And visionaries are what we're about to talk about with this next conversation in this book that I've written.
Yes.
Because a visionary is a wild and crazy entrepreneur, and they're the builders of most things and the creator of most things on this planet. And what makes a visionary successful, because unfortunately, most of them die broke and do not succeed. What makes them successful is having an integrator, having somebody that orchestrates all the moving parts of the business. And there are still visionary entrepreneurs that succeed without an integrator. It's just rare and it's hard, and they rarely fully realize their potential. But when a visionary finds their perfect match, their integrator that counterbalances them so that visionary can be free to be that creative idea machine that they are, while that integrator is orchestrating and running the day-to-day of the business. It's this winning combination that is truly rocket fuel for the organization. That's the name of the book, Rocket Fuel.
When I learned that concept from the book, immediately I saw, okay, of course, everybody knows Walt Disney, but nobody knows Walt Disney, who's an integrator, right? You have Steve Jobs, Wozniak, you have all these combination, even Gates, right? Ballmer, it's the same. They have
Henry Ford and Jim Cousins. Nobody would ever know of Jim Cousins, but that's why there are Ford vehicles on the road today, is because of Jim Cousins.
Yes. Otherwise, the visionary is the creator, is the artist, right? It's the crazy macro thinker, right?
Exactly.
The dreamer, right?
Exactly.
It's like the gas and the brake.
Yeah, exactly.
It is.
Yeah, exactly right.
I'm all gas, but I need someone to give me, actually, we need to brake a little bit. Who cares? Just go, right?
Every true visionary is all gas. You've got that right.
It's very, very true. So what about, in terms of, I'm fortunate because I actually, have someone with a company that could be integrator. But for someone, they say they are visionaries, they're growing, they hit a bottleneck. How do they go about finding their integrator?
Well, so there's a couple of ways. And so as I look back at all of my clients and our EOS clients, what we find about half the time is that person already exists in the organization. You just don't know it.
Yes, true.
And so early on in the process, we take that leadership team through a process of discovering what the right structure is and then filling those seats. And there's always that integrator void. And again, 50% of the time, there's this discovery that says, wow, Sue or Billy, they're like the perfect integrator. So boom, half the time it's there, you just didn't know it. The other half of the time, you have to go outside. And so there are lots of ways to do that. But once you have the awareness for what you need and this great need as a visionary, in Rocket Fuel, we go in great detail in terms of exactly how to do this. So I'm going to put it in a nutshell for you. But it's going out. It's tapping into your network. So I can give you plenty of stories of how a visionary just tapped into their network and it was literally the neighbor of someone or this. You can use a recruiter. There are great integrators. Now that this visionary integrator concept is so prevalent, there are recruiting firms that specialize in recruiting integrators. So just Google search that. And or you've got a great recruiting machine internally and just have your internal recruiter go find it. But they are out there, and it's not something to take lightly, because it truly is your business marriage, for lack of a better term. You're trying to find your ideal partner, per se. Again, not legal partner, but partner in crime in that business to grow that business to the next level. So it's not something you take lightly.
Gino, do you find that like with my organization, I have different companies, right? Within the ecosystem.
Yeah.
So I have my integrator, but I almost feel like within different, it's not even division, it's company. I need an integrator for kind of different, like a CEO for different companies. Have you seen like that working for company? What's been your experience?
So every company is so different. So we got to be careful with this answer, because there isn't a one size fits all. But I want to give you two contextual points that will lead to the best answer in most cases.
Okay.
So the first thing is, whenever I'm with a client that has multiple entities, the first thing I do is I urge you to look at those entities as separate entities. Literally picture them with their own vision and plan, their own accountability chart, their own structure.
Yes.
And assuming you do that, whether some of them come back together, you'll decide that in time, but by separating them, you'll realize that each one of those organizations do need an integrator. And let's hypothetically pretend in this example I'm giving you, that organization splits into three and they need three integrators.
Okay.
If the organization is at a size where it's small enough and the capacity need for an integrator is such, one integrator can do all three jobs. But now let's 10x the growth on those three organizations.
Not much bigger, yeah.
Well, there's no way that one integrator can integrate those three organizations 10 times its size. And so what happens is the organization grows to a size where capacity forces you to now go find a new integrator for one of those, and someday for the next one. So at some point, all three entities should probably have their own integrator. So it's all about size. And then the other issue that you run into there again is, I don't know if each one of those entities are their own legal structure, their own separate business.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so if they do, then what I just shared with you is the answer, and there you will find the answer. And again, if they're, if they're all three $1 million companies with 6 people in each company, odds are one integrator is probably going to be able to integrate those 3 companies. But if they're $100 million companies with 1,000 people in each, there's no way on God's green earth one integrator can integrate for all 3 of those companies.
I even find that because I am, as a visionary, I don't know if all visionaries are like this, but we have a term within a company. You like this. Like we have a team called Bomb Squad, right? And basically what I do is I drop bombs, right?
I love it.
And they catch it, right? And they try to dissolve the bomb, defuse the bomb, right? And it's like it's actually called Bomb Squad. And within there, my directors, multiple of them, even though they're not integrator, but they are kind of like a mini integrators. To take a lot of the ideas to implement, like to execute, right? I find that that's actually what works for me. I don't know if that's what works for other people.
Well, and that's where, now all of a sudden we're getting into your unique culture, your unique style. I would always urge you to keep the structure in place, but when people are being deployed for the bomb squad, make sure it's clear on their role. And so that I would urge, you're getting so unique now in terms of your style and culture. That is a separate answer, because if I said to you, yes, every company needs a bomb squad, I would probably put about 1,000 companies out of business by the end of next year.
Yes.
So we got to be careful with that. If it's working for you and roles and responsibilities are clear and everybody's got the capacity to do the job well and the company's growing, then hey, the bomb squad works great.
And I think that's what I love the most about EOS is the tools. Like where this is the tool, but I have some leeway. I'll add a little bit of I need to modify here, this column here to fit for my company, or this part I really don't need. I don't need that. Boom. So that's the beauty about it. It's not like, you got to do it A, B, C, D, and E.
To your point, said another way, what I would say, as long as you have those 5 foundational EOS tools in place and rock solid, and a bomb squad 100%. Works for you, amen and hallelujah.
Yeah, 100%. Talk to us about the new book, like for entrepreneurs, just like you talk about, I think Michael Gerber talks about it as well in his book. most entrepreneurs are not entrepreneurs. They're employees with entrepreneurial seizure, right?
Yes.
They're not supposed to be entrepreneurs. So how do we know? Let's say someone listening to this or watching this, because I think nowadays, just with social media, it seems to me that it's being promoted, right? Oh, everybody, you should be an entrepreneur, you should be your own boss. And I don't know if that's, personally, I don't believe this for everybody. What's your take?
Yeah, we're on the same page there. And so as I go into answering that, I want to create a little context here as well.
Please.
You know, so what we've talked about up until this moment is EOS and that system I created called EOS. And there are 5 books in the Traction library around that concept.
Awesome.
And that's what I've spent the last 20 years of my life doing. And it thrills me that you're one of our clients. It's so cool. And so to give a little history and get to why I created this and answering your question, I actually sold EOS worldwide last year. I still own 12%. I still own all the books. I'm still the EOS guy, but it's gotten to a size that better people than me, smarter people than me need to take it.
You want to go create. You want to go create.
Yeah, it's just not fun to me anymore. Exactly. I want to create. And so when I was 40 years old, I'm now 52. I said at 40, when I turn 50, I am going to devote my energy toward entrepreneurs in the making. And so 50 hit 2 years ago, and that's when I went to work on it and simultaneously sold the business. And so, you know, the first thing I want to answer in that question that you asked is, there's an old saying that says, we teach what we needed the most. And so what I'm about to share with you, I created because I'm teaching my 18-year-old self what I needed, because I was an entrepreneur in the making. I didn't know that. I was a mislabeled derelict. I had these essential traits we're going to talk about. And so with that, I was one. And so now as we jump to, the book is called Entrepreneurial Leap. And I wrote it for that reason. I wrote it because I want to help entrepreneurs in the making realize what they are and then give them a huge jump start on taking their entrepreneurial leap. And as important, I want to increase the odds of success. And to your point, we 100% agree with each other, because not everyone is cut out to be an entrepreneur, in my opinion. And it's the new rock star. You know, in the 70s, 80s, everybody wanted to be a rock star. Now they all want to be an entrepreneur. And it's really dangerous and it's really scary, especially people that are teaching that anyone can do it. And that somehow, you know, there's a technique or a process, or so I always say entrepreneurship, being an entrepreneur is not something you do, it is something you are. And so what this book does in 3 parts, part 1 starts with helping you to confirm whether you are or not. And what I do is I teach the 6 essential traits that every true entrepreneur has. And there's an assessment that they can take. And assuming they are, then it goes to the next 2 parts, glimpse and path. Glimpse is showing them what their future could look like. Path is showing them a path to make the process a lot less bumpy and increase their odds. And so long story short there, you know, I think it's dangerous, and I don't think everyone's cut out to be an entrepreneur. And just for the record, entrepreneurship is not all it's cut out to be. It's really it's freaking hard.
It is hard.
We're borderline crazy. You know, in our darkest hours, trust me, if people could see us in our darkest hours when we got our ass kicked yesterday, it is not fun. But all that said, I wouldn't trade it for anything, because I freaking love it at the end of the day. And it's fun building stuff, but it's freaking hard.
I think it's also where social media, that's one thing. People think, the only way to be successful, I have to start my own business. And I think, especially a lot of young people, they follow my work. I don't think they have any idea what it takes. Like, you have an idea, let's say you're a young kid, you want to be an NBA basketball player. Okay, you know how it takes a tremendous amount of work, right? You gotta play at a very young age. You gotta win a lot, and then you gotta enter the right university. Like, you know, you want to be a champion golfer, you know. But somehow entrepreneurship is like, I set up an Instagram account. I'm an entrepreneur. You know, I sell something. I have one product on Amazon. I'm an entrepreneur. Right. It's the furthest away. Actually, you know, what is your definition of entrepreneur?
I love that. And it's So I appreciate you saying that, because I want to give you 3 answers to that question, all of which are so important, and then they'll all kind of tie to each other.
Love it.
And you'll get a clear answer. So the first is just a statement. So the 1 sentence definition is, I believe a true entrepreneur is someone who sees a need in the world, takes a risk to start a business to bring that need to the world by either creating something new or improving upon something that exists, and then builds an organization with people to bring that need, solution, idea, or product or service to the world.
Wow.
So to me, that's the definition in a long sentence.
Yes.
The second thing I would say, because this is really important in what we're talking about, is in the book, I share something I call the entrepreneurial range. Okay. And so if you can picture this range, where on the left side of the range, you have self-employed people.
Okay.
And on the right side of the range, you have true entrepreneurs.
Okay.
What's important in this definition that we're talking about is all self-employed people fall somewhere on that range, but a true entrepreneur falls to the right side of that range. And we're talking about, if we think about redlining that range, you've already said the names, the greatest entrepreneurs of all time: Henry Ford, Walt Disney, Thomas Edison, Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, Sarah Blakely. These are the people on the far right side of that range. Every self-employed person is somewhere in that range. And so to the far left is where you have your solopreneurs, your freelancers, your one-person shows.
Yes.
Those are all admirable. And so I'm not knocking those people have taken risks.
Yes.
So what's important as I'm defining this, I'm defining the people on the right end of that range. And so there's no shame in being a handyman, self-employed, making $100,000 a year, charging $60 an hour.
100%. Yeah. 100%.
So all that said, that's definition number 2. And then definition number 3, to what I love what you said just a little bit ago, is I believe there is a clear definition or description or DNA or genetics for an entrepreneur, and it's 6 essential traits. And that's what I'm explaining in this book. And those 6 essential traits are: a true entrepreneur is someone that possesses these traits: visionary, passionate, problem solver, driven, risk taker, and responsible. And so somebody that has those embedded in them, they are a true entrepreneur. And I also believe, to be a little controversial here, is you're born with it. It can't be taught. You can't learn it. It is absolutely nature over nurture. And that's a bit controversial. And so with that, assuming that's true, I want to find those people. I believe it's about 4% of the population, and help them know what they are, because some of them is a 35-year-old in corporate America that followed, they just followed the rules, went to college, got the corporate job, and they're miserable, and they're an entrepreneur, and what a shame. And just like it's also that 18-year-old like I was, that's sitting there making a decision, college or not. Am I going to become an attorney? What am I? So it's designed to find them where they are and show them why they're on this earth.
And do you see, people talk about statistics, 90% of small business fail in the first 5 years. Some say it's 95% that fail. Whatever the number is a huge number. Right?
Big number.
Most businesses don't make it past 5 years. And the ones who do make it, most of those don't survive. And I forgot the percentage, but it's a tiny percentage that companies ever reach $1 million in revenue. Right. And then there's even a tiny reach ever 10 million. It's like a tiny percentage, right?
Exactly.
And I think this is just my personal perspective. I think we're on the same page. It's like the only tiny percentage ever make it to NBA. A lot of people play basketball for fun as a hobby.
Yeah.
Only a tiny percentage ever get to NBA. And within NBA, there's even a tiniest small percentage that are the top earning kind of players, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing in business. I think
100%.
I like the way you describe the 6 traits. I'm just thinking about my own past. I think a lot of those it's just within us. It's who we are, and we don't want to do it any other way, right?
Yeah, and I want to grab something you said there, because now you're touching on the second part of the book in glimpse. Because when you talk about how big the company gets and the probability of success and the percentage that make it to a certain size.
Yeah.
One of the things I do in the glimpse part is I talk about all of an entrepreneur's options in terms of the business they could build.
Yes.
And my goal is to teach these people that there's more to business than $1 billion tech unicorns. I mean, there is, and they're like one in a million.
Yes.
And what I get into is
Yes.
all of the different options in terms of industries, businesses, sizes, product businesses, service businesses, B2B, B2C.
Yes.
And so there's so many options.
Yes.
that it's okay to be an entrepreneur of a $10 million company that's an insurance company that you built from scratch. I mean, that's still an entrepreneur, and that's incredibly respectful and admirable. You don't have to build $1 billion company. It's okay 100%. To have a $3 million company, 10, 50, whatever your number is. Not everyone's built to build $1 billion company. And so it's important to decide what kind of an entrepreneur you are, because that's why I sold EOS Worldwide. We got over 300, we got to over 250 people at the time of the sale. And that was enough for me. I don't want to be responsible for 1,000 people, and that's where it's going. And, and there's better people than me for that. And I want to go back to building something from the ground up, and so I know what kind of entrepreneur I am. I urge every entrepreneur in the making to know what kind of an entrepreneur you are.
Yes, that's so profound, because instead of trying to pretend that, I could be like that, or this is my thing, versus, I think one thing I tell all my students is, say, just because it's bigger doesn't mean it's better, right? Build a better business.
Yeah.
If you are running a $10 million business, let's say it's throwing off, $1 million in profit, you're happy, you've got a good lifestyle, great.
Exactly.
Running $100 million thing, you may not be happier.
Exactly. And here's another funny thing, so there are $100 million companies that generate a 2% profit. Okay. So they're generating a $2 million profit.
Yeah.
There are $5 million companies that generate a 40% profit.
Yes.
The same $2 million, I promise you, the $5 million business is a lot easier than the $100 million business. So again, it makes me crazy when an entrepreneur says, I want to build a $100 million company, because I always respond with, do you really want to build a $100 million company? Because they just don't know what that really means when they say that. And so there's just so many.
And it ties to one of the traits is the responsibility, that who are you responsible for? Yes. Like when you're a small little company, yeah, great. You make if I'm running a small company, I make a wrong decision. When I was just me and my wife, big deal.
Yeah.
Right. But now when I make a wrong decision, it affects thousands of people's lives. It's a different thing, right? Now I use this metaphor, right? In the beginning, it's like just me on a little boat, right? I'm like a little wooden boat. I'm just like going along in the little lake, right? And then as more people jump on board, I figure, okay, I need to upgrade my ship. I need to make a little bigger ship. Okay, let's do that. And I said, we get bigger now, we can, go further in the lake. Let's do that. And now we'll have more people on board. This is great. Now I got to upgrade my ship. Now I got to think, I got to go into the ocean. Go to the ocean now. A wood, like a boat made of wood, is not so good. I need a boat made of metal here, right? Right? And then no, out there. What about I have like pirates and stuff? I need some canyon. I need some guns. I need to protect the people. And then now it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it's no longer. It's different. It's very, very different.
That's such a great analogy. That's so good. And I'm sitting here. You and I could go for an hour now on everything you have to keep building. Yeah. That you at some point you go, is this really worth it? So it's such a great analogy.
It's true. And I'm lucky. I'm fortunate. I think I have the traits. I have the gifts that I could do it. But for most people, I would say it's very hard. Like I don't think people understand how hard it is.
Exactly.
And that's why it's one thing. Like even like you said, it's one thing to be even if you're building a company, unicorn. Well, a lot of them have done it, but let's say how long they stay successful.
Exactly.
Right.
And how rare it is when a company gets to $1 billion that the founder is still at the helm. I mean, look at those odds.
Yeah, it's very, very, very rare. In terms of the book, for entrepreneurs, let's say they are, okay, I think they have the traits. Like you said, they are kind of ready to go, and they have figured out the vision, the dream. This is kind of the business I want to build. Over the years, you work with so many companies. what do you think are some of the biggest, let's say, mistakes or bottlenecks that hold most entrepreneurs back?
Yeah, so it's funny you say exactly that, because what I do in the glimpse portion of the book is I share, because I'm trying to paint a vivid picture for this entrepreneur in the making of what life could look like for them and what the potential is and what are all the options. And one of the things I do is I share a day in the life,
Oh, yes.
both heaven and hell. So a day in heaven, a day in hell. So when it's good and when it's bad, the dream
mostly in hell, probably.
Yes, exactly.
It's mostly hell.
And the message is that the dream is so doable, but unfortunately most entrepreneurs live the nightmare. And then what I share are the 8 mistakes, the 8 most common mistakes entrepreneurs make during the startup phase of their business. And so I'm glad you're asking, and I'm going to kind of give maybe my favorite
couple,
4 of the 8. But where this comes from, it's so important because there's not 1 ounce of theory in this book. There's not 1 ounce of theory coming out of my mouth right now. I mean, this has all been tested and honed for 30 years. So where this comes from is all of my clients in the last 20 years and all of our EOS clients over the last 20 years that come to us, they come to us when they have 10 to 250 employees. So they've survived startup. And when they come to us after that startup phase, they're suffering from certain issues, and these issues all stem from these 8 mistakes that they made. And so to give you a couple examples, one of the most common mistakes is not having a vision. And so what's a classic, so now watch this, we'll pull 2 things together. So a true entrepreneur has these 6 essential traits. And then you and I were talking about visionary a little while ago. Well, a visionary and a true entrepreneur, they're one and the same. A visionary has these 6 essential traits. So a common trait of a visionary is they have their vision in their head. It's just never really articulated, taken out of their brain, put on paper so everyone can see it. And so a common mistake is everybody's just following the orders of that visionary entrepreneur. And they're so passionate, and these people are so caught up in the vision and believe in that leader so much, they're just following the orders. Well, what's powerful is if that entrepreneur can get out of their head and on paper the plan, the vision. And so I created a little tool called My Vision Clarifier. It could be downloaded on the website. It's in the book. Nice. And it's just getting you to get it out of your head, get it on paper so that your people can see it, because the real secret is you want everyone rowing in the same direction. If everybody knows your vision, all of a sudden they're doing 80% of the heavy lifting for you, when up until that point, that entrepreneur was doing all the heavy lifting because everybody's waiting for their orders every day. So that's a common mistake. Another common mistake is hiring the wrong people. And so I'll start with the statistics first. And the statistics are, when our clients come to us, on average, there's a 20% turnover, which means they're literally getting rid of 20% of their employees because of all the bad hires they made. And my most extreme example is a client that had to get rid of 50% of their people. And so what happens there is, as you're an entrepreneur in your startup and you're growing your business, and all of a sudden, you know, the boat's getting bigger. Let's keep using your analogy because it's so damn good. Well, you need another person in that boat rowing, and you grab the closest person to you, and you just throw them in the boat, or you bring them into the business. And so you hire your friend, your uncle, your cousin, you just hire and you throw them in your business, and it was a bad hire. And then you do it again and again and again. And you're just throwing people at your problems. When the reality is, what you need to do is be much more methodical. And you just need to hire people that fit with your culture, i.e. core values. They have the skill set for the job. And all of a sudden you start hiring better during startup. You're going to be a quantum leap ahead of where you are. Because imagine when the client comes to us, whatever point that is, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 years into the journey, they've got 20% on average of their people in the organization that are wrong, and they're a drag on the organization. So to the boat analogy, you got 20% of the people that aren't even rowing. So you replace them with people that are rowing, all of a sudden the boat's going to go twice as fast. So that's one. And then I'll throw one more at you.
Love it.
And it's not charging enough. And so it's so fascinating to me, and it's psychological. So most businesses, we're talking about how these businesses don't survive, and whatever the percentage is, 50 to 95% that don't survive the first 5 years. A lot of times they're not surviving because economically they're losing money every day for however many years, and you can't sustain that forever. Well, let's pretend hypothetically they're losing 5%. Well, a 10% price increase also all of a sudden takes you from a 5% loss to a 10% gain where you're now making a 5% profit. And so psychologically, what I realize is people are undercharging for their product or service. And so two nuggets I would offer your audience. There's a great TED talk by Casey Brown, and she's an expert on teaching people how to get their head right when they charge and how to educate their customers and their clients, because it's the difference between your business surviving and your business not. And then Dan Sullivan, one of my business coaches,
strategic coach, yes,
yeah, strategic coach, he has a great formula, and he says, when it comes to pricing, think about the number that scares you the most and then add 20%.
I love that.
So with those two nuggets, that can be the difference between a business succeeding or failing, and it's almost always psychological.
Yeah, because when you talk about visionary, I could see before I was expect everybody knows my vision. What do you mean you don't know my vision? No, but it's only in my head, right? As a visionary, you will see, you will think everybody thinks like you. Nobody thinks like you. Just forget it. No one within your company thinks like you.
Exactly. Okay? And it's literally in vivid color in your brain as a visionary. Yes. So you think they're seeing what you're seeing, and they're just not even close.
No. And I find that I need to repeat it again and again and again and again. Yeah. To keep giving them the picture. And it's not just, oh, here's a piece of paper, use my vision. It's not like that. You got to keep selling them on the vision and reminding them of the vision.
Yeah. And I want to tell you something that this is really a helpful, this is like I call it a punch in the gut for a visionary, but it's a great punch in the gut because it's a wake up call. And so I'm going to tell this story in 1 minute if I can. And so there was a study done at Stanford University, and it was a study done on communication. And what would happen is, two students would sit at a table facing each other, and one student would get a list of songs, like 120 songs, and they're all well-known songs. Happy Birthday, ABC, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And they would tap out on the table the song. And so all you're hearing is tap, tap, tap. The listener would have to guess the song. Okay. So long story short, the percentage of songs that the listener guesses right is about 2.5%. Most people would think it's like 50% or more. Yeah. And so the point there is, the person tapping out the song is hearing that song in their brain, pitch perfect, birds are singing, so it sounds perfect to the people tapping, and they're going thump, thump, thump on the table. Well, just like a visionary who has that vivid picture in their brain, when they're talking about their vision, sadly, the listener is hearing thump, thump, thump on a
2.5%, yeah.
Exactly. So the visionary just has to get masterful at over-communicating the vision, getting it on paper so people can see it, touch it, feel it, because most of the time your people are just hearing thump, 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 and that can only last so long.
Very, very true. I was watching a documentary on Netflix, Inside Bill's Brain, like on Bill Gates. Great documentary. I cannot
wait to watch that.
Oh, you'll love it. You'll love it. It's three series. It's incredible. Awesome. And there was the interviewer asked Bill a question, which I think is very profound. He was saying, so you're doing all these projects. We're not talking about Microsoft. We're talking about these global projects, like global issues, energy, water, all these things. So why you do it? And the interviewer was like, is it for inspiration? Is it for your legacy? Is it for what is it? Why you need to spend that much time and money to do these things? And Bill looks at the guy, he only replies with one word: optimization. And I thought it was very profound because to him, at least my interpretation is, because if it's not me, then who's going to do it? It's just because he could. Yeah. It's not about fame. It's not about any of those things.
Exactly. And so that's so powerful that one word for him means so much, and that drives everything. Yeah. And you're savvy enough to figure out what that word means. But just imagine, he hires 1,000 people tomorrow, and he said, we're all here for optimization. They're all going to go, what in the hell is he talking about? And so to articulate what that means is so powerful, that word. And it's really cool because now we know how his brain works.
Yeah. Oh yeah. After the documentary, you will have, I have so much more. I always study Bill Gates and love what he thinks, how he thinks. But after documentary, you're like, no wonder. Yeah. He could read a book like this with 90% retention. Yeah. It's insane, how his brain works.
Incredible.
What's interesting is, and this is kind of like a personal share, what I notice is my motive for the vision also changes. I don't know if that's same for entrepreneurs, like that you work with. In the beginning, I got into entrepreneurship because I wanted more freedom, right? I want to be able to make enough money to provide for my family. It's like a survival thing, right? And after a while, once that's good, now I want to have more, that's good, but I want to have more comfort, right? Now it's not just a car, I want a nicer car, right? I want more materialistic things, right? I want a bigger house, I want better vacation, whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
Once I got through that, then it's like, okay, now I want, and I'm not proud to admit it, but I went through that period of time. I want people to know how successful I am, how smart I am. Look at me, right? After I got through all the out of the systems, it's just like the boat, the smaller boat. Like before, I just want to go to the island and sit on the beach. That was my vision, the limitation, my vision. Now, when you have this big boat, now it's more so why I bring EOS, why I keep evolving as a leader. Is I describe my teams. I want a battleship. I want an unsinkable ship, because if something happens, people die on my ship. And I cannot have people dying on my ship. So my focus has shifted very, very, like, it's dramatically. I don't think about like what am I gonna get. I don't care about any of those things. What drove me before doesn't drive me at all at this point, right? It's just, do you find that that's the case for entrepreneurs? Like if they evolve?
It's really interesting. I come at it a little bit different than that, because I don't know that I can give you this perfect yes, no answer to that. And it's interesting because I think you and I differ on this premise, and that's okay. It's a good thing. Because I was learning a little bit about you before this podcast. So I looked at one of your videos on YouTube, and I literally laughed for 2 minutes, and it was your video on do what you love and the money will follow.
Yes.
That is so powerful. And but you and I come at that whole concept and this whole concept around passion, I think differently, but who knows, at the end of this, it might be the exact same thing.
I want to hear it, 100%.
Yeah. So here's all I can tell you is, so again, I'm speaking from experience and everything I've experienced. When a company comes to me, an entrepreneur comes to me, one of the things we're doing for them in EOS is we're getting them back to their passion, back to their purpose, back to why that organization exists. Because what happens is they tend to get away from it. And so we take them through a process of understanding
bring it back,
why they exist. Exactly. And so you obviously went through that process.
Yes.
And so what I learned through all of that, and then if you look at the teachings over time, and the best teaching to me is Jim Collins' work in Built to Last.
Oh, yes.
That
Good to great.
Enduring organizations at their core all have a purpose. And so whatever you call this word, reason for being, why, passion, cause, I believe every organization has one. And so, once you get past survival, I think it was always there. And so having done this so many times with so many companies, I'm not so sure that it changes constantly over time. I believe it's actually enduring. And so that's my humble 2 cents. And then and knowing this, having the luxury of knowing this, when I started EOS Worldwide 20 years ago, I knew my passion. I knew my reason for being. I knew what I wanted to bring to the world. And it was all about helping entrepreneurs get everything they want out of their businesses. And so it's been that in my life for the last 20 years. But when I look back, it's always kind of been there. And so I don't see it necessarily changing regularly, but I also, when I hear your story and when you talk about the changes, I think the truth of the matter is survival is what drove you in the early stages. And my story is known in that when I started EOS Worldwide, I had a nice cushion after selling the business that I sold, and then I lost every penny. So I was in survival mode, but I believe armed with needing to survive and the passion driving the decisions to build the organization, you'll get out of there faster, you'll build it faster. And that's just my humble 2 cents.
I think it's very true, because thinking back when I was a kid, I actually had zero interest in business. I never liked business. Like I remember when I was a little kid, I wanted to be a firefighter. My uncle is a firefighter. So I said, when I grow up, I'm going to be a firefighter, right? And then when I got a little bit older, I got into martial art. My biggest dream was to be a martial art instructor.
Yeah.
I have a little dojo and I would teach martial art. That was it.
Yeah.
But I think throughout that period of time, I always liked to teach.
Yeah.
Just like yourself, I'm a teacher, right?
Here.
And from there, I think the survival, I think I agree with you. It's because I need to focus on survival because I need to take care of my family. But I think it's always there. And now I think why I work harder than ever. I'm so obsessed with like growth and growing and taking it to the next level because I cherish the opportunity. I finally feel like I have the platform, the capital, the team to really like do what a lot of things I want to do. I think I think 100% agree with you. I think that's
and I think, if we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, so it's interesting. So, you were born, in my opinion, with those 6 essential traits.
Yes.
And whatever your circumstances, you're kind of working up that hierarchy and you're applying those 6 essential traits to wherever you are in that hierarchy. And so from a survival standpoint, you're applying those traits to survive. Now with this, you're all the way at the top now with this self-actualization. Now the impact you're going to have on the world applying those traits, knowing that it's not about survival, is going to be exponential.
Yes, and like you said, I tell all my team members I'm 1% of where I see we could be.
Right.
Most people would say, "Oh, you're already 1%."
Right.
Because I want to see what can I do. Right. I'm still I'm 37 years old.
Right. And what the hell else are you going to do? Are you going to retire and golf every day? I mean, it's like if you have those 6 essential traits, I mean, you're not going to go, sit on a golf course every day or on a boat every day.
As you know, as an entrepreneur, after like 2 weeks off, you're like, let's do something here.
Right. Exactly.
You're getting a sunburn. Like this is not that much fun.
Exactly.
It's not that. So with this book, if someone, let's say, reads the book and they need more help, do you have afterwards like different programs, different resources for them beyond than just the book?
So yes and no. So there are resources and a set of tools on the website. And so you'll see, again, as we talked about with EOS, I have this ability to make things very practical and simplify those. And so what you're going to find is this is very much kind of a how-to manual. And so it's all there. The idea is I want to arm that entrepreneur in the making with everything they need. And so the tools are in the book. The tools are downloadable on the website. Nice. The website is e-leap.com. They can take an assessment there and all that wonderful stuff. Because the reality of what I'm doing is I'm taking that entrepreneur in the making to leap. And then when they get to their leap stage and they're in startup mode, there are 10,000 resources out there. I'm not even going to play in that bloodbath that is helping startups start up whatever it is that they need, because there are so many resources. Why on earth would I go there? And so I believe they've got everything that they need in this book to realize that they are, see their future, know what they want to be, and then how to take that leap. So
and maybe it's like exactly for some people, they read the book and they may be thinking, oh, you know what, this is not for me. Maybe I'm better off doing something else. That's great.
Exactly. And when I talk about increasing the success rate, I'm going to do that 2 ways, in my humble opinion. And that is, number one, certainly help an entrepreneur in the making get a better path, understand the path, eliminate some mistakes they're going to make. But it's also going to be helping someone understand that they're not an entrepreneur, because a good percentage of those failure rates that we talked about are because of people that started the process that should have never started the process in the first place.
Yeah, the 4%. And it's funny because from what I see, people talk about entrepreneurship. I almost find that because of maybe social media, that most people are actually less entrepreneurial now than before.
Well, that's something that scares me a bit. So I don't know. I haven't been able to prove that, but I do think we're getting a little soft, and entrepreneurs are gritty, and life's a lot better than it was 50 and 100 years ago. So that is a bit scary. So hopefully grit still exists on this planet, because that's what it takes to be an entrepreneur and build something. So let's hope it's still in us.
I agree. And what's the best way to get a copy of the book? Amazon?
So Amazon, certainly, but all major retailers. It's available at all major retailers in all forms, digital, audio, print, whatever works. Again, e-leap.com is the website with the tools and a place to buy the book. well. So that's my story.
That's awesome. Thank you, Gino. I appreciate it. I mean, thank you for being on the show. Again, I want to thank you for the work that you created. Definitely has impacted my life and also all the customers and students that I touched through just better practices through EOS. So I appreciate it very, very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.